Across the last 3 years, Centria has been on a mission to fundamentally transform the model of care for our clients, our staff, and the industry.
We will share with you our journey towards assent-based care, the lessons we've learned, and the people we've learned them with.
We're your hosts, Timothy Yeager
and Hillary Laney.
Welcome to the HRE Podcast.
Welcome to the HRE Podcast.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't think of a better first guest than you.
Thank you. Agreed.
I just want to reminisce before we jump into this.
Okay, let's do it. We talk about this all the time, actually. Timothy and I do. We talk about you all the time.
So your CLR interview, to me, is like a moment where I'd never met you, right? And I'm really proud of the work that we're doing and all this rollout and mentorship, and I know that we're having an impact, right? And it was like, your interview was like a mic drop moment in history for me, right? Where
thank you.
Not only do we have incredible people working for us that I was able to meet you,
Yeah.
but then to see the impact that our mentorship has had on you, and it was just I don't know, it was a really affirming moment for me in the work that we're doing. And so I don't know, I'm just really excited you're here.
I have to be honest, I don't remember anything of my interview. That entire day was such a disaster of a day. My car was blocked in. I think we got snow that day or something. It was a disaster of a day. So by the time I came to the interview, where I'm normally nervous, I was like, oh, this is going to be what it is.
You left and we both were just like, wow.
What just happened?
What just happened? Yeah. It was so cool. Because generally what happens for me is when people are in mentorship with my team, I hear all kinds of positive things about people, right? Mm-hmm. And Cindy had been saying oh, Ashley this and Ashley that, but I had never interacted with you. And so I had been cool, great, this person's doing awesome. And then we interviewed her. I'm like, Cindy, you held back. What? How is this the first time I'm meeting her? It was joyful. The interview itself, I was like, wow, that could be my HRE. I could sit. That's why you're the perfect first interview, because I could just sit and talk with you forever.
I appreciate you guys not telling me. I take it back. I know before we started this, I was saying that I was scared to be the first interview. I'm now happy. Honestly, because of this. Because I'm getting all this fabulous praise right now.
You're wonderful.
I will say,
Go ahead.
I will say the mentorship too has changed everything for me. Not even professionally, but my thinking. I don't know how I'm saying that right, but just my thinking moving forward as a clinician too. I'm never going to see things from the same perspective as I did even 3 to 5 months ago.
Wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's ultimately the goal, is developing a problem-solving skill set.
Yeah, in questioning everything. And I've been training my technicians and the clinicians I'm working with to also be questioning everything. Just because I'm the clinician on this case does not mean I know everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to be asking questions. I have to be making sure that they're asking questions and that they're just as engaged as I am.
Your lens changes, right? Because now instead of thinking about, oh, I have to solve this problem, oh, I have to solve this problem, oh, I have to solve this problem, you're thinking, what's happening for this client right now? Mm-hmm. And if I don't understand what's happening for this client right now, nothing else matters. Yeah. And so it really changes what you're analyzing in terms of oh, they're having this behavior, let me solve that problem, versus what's happening in the environment? What is happening with this situation? What is happening globally for them? And you take it's a much different view on how to analyze what's occurring with a client.
Yeah. Where my previous company, it was very much black and white. This is how it is. This is how we're moving forward. Looking at things in that minute, in that second, when nothing's ever in that second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even a client that I was with the other day, the things they're bringing in, maybe they didn't sleep well. That needs to be honored, and we're going to need to adjust things that day to honor the fact that they're exhausted. And hey, when you're exhausted, nobody wants to do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the aha moments for me, and I think that aligns with what you're talking about, is this idea that we acquiesce in moments, right? So if a child's not having it and they're doing something that is dangerous, it's just indicating to us that they're not assenting to care. Mm-hmm. The ability to acquiesce, the freedom to acquiesce in that moment, to know that that's not the moment to solve an issue, right? Mm-hmm. That's the moment to let's be safe, let's honor their voice, and then let's start to do the analysis that's needed.
Yep.
I can remember so many times as a BCBA, and in a hot home, right? Like in providing home services, not necessarily all the most comfortable, and a client's doing something that like we don't want them to be doing, and I'm like sweaty, stressed, figuring out like how do I fix this thing right now?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the right time,
No.
right? For anybody.
Even with parents, like parents are stressed. One of the go-tos, especially for parents that have a lot of significant trauma in their own lives, is to yell and scream. I know the history I have a lot of personal trauma in my own life, and my parents, their go-to was to yell, scream, the things that you don't want to see happening was what was happening. And in the moment where that parent is yelling at that kid because something happened, that's not the time to teach.
Right.
And maybe that time you want to teach, but the time to teach is when things are calm
and safe again.
Like in that moment, you're just managing.
Yeah.
You're just helping them reach back to the HRE.
Yeah. So speaking of HRE, what's yours?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I knew you were going to ask this question. I was like, they're going to ask this. So I have multiple.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you my current one that was last night.
Okay.
My dogs were chill for once in their lives. And my husband was, I think, in a different room or something. And I was texting with my best friend about this new reality TV show that came out called 90 Day Fiancé Last Resort. And it was
I'm aware of that
so
one.
good. It was so good. So that was probably my HRE. Because
That's great.
I just want to watch the whole season now.
Got it.
Yeah.
So trash TV
Trash TV.
in
Chill
like
dogs.
chill dogs in a conversation with your friend.
Yes. Sometimes, otherwise, the other one is like a fancy, not even fancy, like a restaurant with foods that I haven't tried before, and just adventure in general.
Yeah. That's similar to Hillary's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Food. There's a new sticker. Food is my HRE. It's perfect.
I did grab that one.
I got it too.
So let's talk about impact.
Yeah.
We started down this journey of Foundations of Care, not for like any philosophical research perspective, but like we just wanted to make a difference. I think naively for me, I started with the lens. I think it's maybe not naive, but like part of our values is being client-centered, right? I thought about like the impact on that client, but I want to talk about like the impact on like you and your skill set. And like what has this mentorship, the ability, learning about a practical functional assessment, learning about skills-based treatment, learning about our universal protocol, like how has that like impacted you and your like ability to be a BCBI?
So before I started at Centria, I had done a traditional FA. And it took a total of 3 months to be able to get even somewhat of good information from it.
Wow.
And that was right at the beginning of my career. So I was like, okay, this is the way it is. And I didn't feel comfortable with that. Like it didn't sit right with me, but that was the company policy. That was kind of how things went. So coming here and seeing a framework where you're given the resources and the mentorship to make this happen, and you're not expected to have all the answers. You're allowed to, I don't want to say, you're allowed to make mistakes, but you're allowed to ask questions, and it's not like, hey, you have to know everything. Nobody has the answers to everything, ever.
Yep.
So being allowed to ask questions and then grow in your skill set is just it's a really cool opportunity. Also, I want to give a shout out to you two, because you two are consistently getting me outside of my comfort zone. This is, as I've told you guys, I don't like group praise. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't like any of those things. And you guys asking like, hey, do this, do that, and being open to coming in and being uncomfortable also is just empowering as well.
People need to hear your voice. I've told you this before.
Yes,
you have so much that you can give people just by sharing your experiences and your knowledge.
And I think that's true for anybody.
It's true. But you haven't been.
And that's true. That's true, though. That is true. But, like, also when people come in, you sometimes just want to get a paycheck. Like, at the end of the day, you just want to not get fired.
Yeah.
And in a lot of companies and a lot of things, that's really the end goal, is just not to get fired and not to ruffle feathers. You guys are allowing opportunities to ruffle feathers in a way that I haven't experienced before in my professional life.
I am a professional at ruffling feathers.
Have you always been?
Yes, I just haven't been all that skilled at it for a long time.
Still growing.
I think what you're describing though is Hillary and I've been wrestling through. I've been wrestling through this idea of like, what is the analogous to like SBT
Yeah.
with
staff.
like for staff, right?
Uh-huh.
And I would hope that what you're kind of describing is maybe we built some trust and rapport that we start from, and then we allow you to, in like similar approach to SBT, like stretch
Build skills
and build
grow.
skills.
And then we challenge them.
And everybody should be challenged. No, but the people who are BCBAs and think they have all the answers, that's the point where, hot take, I would say it's time for you to be done. Like, you need to just leave. Like, if you think you have all the answers, you don't.
One of the conversations we've been having for the last 2 days is about this like perfect mixture between arrogance and humility, right? And I think that speaks to that of like, you do need to have a level of arrogance might not be the right word, but confidence and willingness to like lean in and try things and do things.
But I would say arrogance is that step above,
Right.
Where
Where you're
like,
not willing
over,
to try.
over everybody.
Yeah. Yep.
But humility, and that's the one area that we feel very strong about. That like
How do you teach that?
we
skill,
need
though?
more humility.
I don't know. How do you teach that skill? I think we're still learning how to teach that skill because I don't know. From my perspective, we've tried a couple of interventions with folks and some have been successful, but I think it also depends on the person. I think to teach anything though, you have to have rapport with people. And it's really hard to build that rapport with someone who doesn't want to hear what you have to say or doesn't respect what you have to say.
And sometimes I'm going to go back to my interview just for a hot second, is I have this analogy that I use often throughout my life where you have to find something that you can begin with. And for one person that was just a challenging person to work with, it was a Diet Coke. At the time, I drank Diet Coke. I can't anymore because of my migraines, but I used to drink Diet Coke. They drink Diet Coke. We would just talk about Diet Coke.
Foot in the door.
I think sometimes, though, the Diet Coke isn't enough. And that's where the analogy kind of changed. And sometimes people need the consequences to be able to reach that humility. And that's hard.
It is.
So here's how I would say I'm not often described the most humble person, but like I think that like how I was put in the situation, which was in my graduate program, we had very clear definitions of what like client outcomes were.
Okay.
And how we were measured on a week-to-week basis. And every week I saw that I was not making the right decisions because my clients were not improving, right? Every week I was faced with consequences that like I had to make better decisions.
Yeah.
My clients needed to do better. And it was a function of me. And then I could see that when I did make good decisions and changes and like provide the right level of feedback to my technicians, my clients improved.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think in large part, one of the goals that I have is that like as we continue to evolve as an organization and get some of more of these clinical metrics that we want to drive and hold clinicians accountable to, that they're going to come in contact with, I'm either doing good or I'm not doing good. And it's not a subjective feeling anymore or like a story you can tell yourself or an arrogant like persona you can like give off, right? And then we're going to find out whose values align.
Yeah.
Yeah. And client progress has to be a conditioned reinforcer,
For sure.
right? Because you were responsive to that change. That is not necessarily the skill set of many of the people in the field right now, besides here, just because of how new they are, and that hasn't been a part of their training. And so seeing the changes either in front of their eyes or on a graph and understanding how their decision impacted that isn't a conditioned reinforcer for a lot of people. And that's part of what we're trying to achieve, right? Is to have leadership that conditions those things as reinforcers. And sometimes as a result of that, there's consequences.
And
Right?
if you think about it, we're a field that focuses on metrics.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those metrics usually, at least the other companies I was working with, were billable metrics. So you're not going to naturally, you're going to go to the thing that's actually going to be
Get reinforced.
which money is a strong reinforcer.
Yep.
You're going to go towards those billable hours. But when you put the two together, it gives you that value way more than just focusing on those billable hours.
So, we have gone through some changes here in terms of billable hours, and in your role particularly, there's some changes. But with, the model that we have and the foundations of care, how has the foundations of care changed your supervision practices to be more effective?
So I started off with Foundations of Care like a month after I started. So like I really never
What about
didn't
previous
have
to
it
here?
previously. So previously it was I would show up. I'm gonna say my previous company. I would show up to my supervision. I would kind of say hello to the technician. I would ask if they have any issues, and then do like probably 2 to 3 minutes. I would say sometimes more, sometimes less. Sometimes it'd be right away of just building that rapport with the client, the technician, seeing how things are, and then I was on my computer looking at data the entire time. I wasn't, and then a few programs here and there that I saw weren't going well, and then that was it. There wasn't really, and then of course coaching the technicians, but there wasn't the piece where I was looking at that rapport as much between the technician and the client. I just wanted to see, hey, is programming going well? Hey, it wasn't, hey, I see that right now you're on your phone. It was like, okay, they're on their phone. I would talk about it with them, but like it wasn't as much as, hey, right now you need to be, if the client is coloring, you should be coloring alongside with them, even if they don't want to talk to you. And I will say now that is a major focus of each supervision session is just making sure that that rapport with the technician is growing and that the client is showing improvements themselves and checking in with the stakeholders that are related to that client. And making sure the technician also knows the impact they're making. Because I feel like oftentimes, especially with my clients that are full-time SBT, they will say, I feel like I'm doing nothing. I feel like I'm doing nothing. I'm like, you're not doing nothing. You are helping them reach their HRE to build the skills that are long-term. So making sure I'm checking in with the technician so that they're getting that feedback and that positivity as well.
Is there a client story that, like, when you think about, look back through this process that like really impacts you?
Yeah, so I have many, and none are popping. I'm gonna actually share about my recent client. So I have had a client who's had services for about 3 years. I took the case over about 6-ish months ago. We're gonna say that's the timeline. My timelines are never great.
Yeah.
And when I started on the case, she was throwing upwards of about 100 times a day, just any items in her vicinity. She didn't really have a ton of functional communication. We started SBT about a month when I started into the case, and her recent throwing has gone down to about 5 to 8, and even then, we're having a lot of days where it's 0. Like if her communication has also grown as well. We're using PECS and an AAC device, so she's been able to communicate her wants and her needs as well. And she currently is beginning to transition out of a high chair into a regular typing chair, and we're beginning to able to work on toileting as well.
Well, that's great.
And she's interactively playing with her peers and, her siblings. She's interactively playing with her siblings. She loves to play tag. So she'll go up to them and tap them and then run away.
That's so
Awesome.
It's so exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you about your CLR role.
Yes.
Clinical Leadership Resident, right? And so for those listening, as an organization committed to like mentoring and rolling out our foundations of care, we identified, or Hilly identified, that like we need a lot more people to do it. And so we hired 16? I think 16
or 18.
Yeah, clinical leadership residents who were clinicians, who were mentored, met competencies, and you were able to have a smaller caseload while mentoring clinicians. I was hoping maybe you could just talk about like that experience from like going to like a case supervisor to a coach of your peers.
So I previously, when I was a special ed teacher, spent a lot of my time doing coaching. So coming in from the school setting to the clinical setting, where a lot of the people that I am coaching have been BCBAs or working in the ABA therapy longer than me. So really just coming in, and the first thing I've had to do is just build a rapport with them and let them know, like, kind of where, like, hey, this is the trajectory things are going in. And I feel like oftentimes I'm having, this is not a bad thing. This is, hold on, my brain's is making the words work. It's being a resource to them and being like, hey, you can do this. A lot of times they have been scared. They're going to fail. They're going to pass. They're going to get fired. I've heard that one a lot too. Like, you're going to fail. I'm going to fail mentorship. I'm going to be fired, when they're really meeting all the guidelines and the timeline. So sometimes it's just that and building the rapport from them. But the thing I've enjoyed the most is how much through mentorship I am learning from each of the clinicians that that I'm working with. Like, I'm learning from them just as much as I am teaching them these skills of foundational care. And those conversations I'm having with them is so powerful because a great conversation I've had recently is just around edibles. And edibles have been the go-to for many of the clinicians I'm working with because it was what they were taught.
Yeah.
And they weren't really shown any
And it
differently.
works from their perspective.
Exactly. It works. And it's having those conversations of, okay, how are we going to fade this out? How can we fade this to something that's more naturalistic? Because we don't want to see I had a client who was in her 20s who had been an ABA most of her life, and her only really leisure skills in reinforcers were edibles, likely because of ABA therapy.
For those listening that are not aware, we are talking about candy and items. We're not
Yes.
talking about THC infused gummies.
I mean, those can be reinforcing too. But yes, we were talking about like M&Ms or what's another
Marshmallows.
one? Yes.
Marshmallows and
Skittles.
Goldfish crackers.
Goldfish
Yeah.
crackers.
Yeah.
To be fair though, the goldfish pretzels, those are so good. If somebody wanted to
Food
pay
is
me
a
daily-
reinforcer.
it is, but it shouldn't
How we
be
use
the
it is
only
important.
thing
Yeah.
that's in their
Yeah.
repertoire. We should be building their repertoire to be more than just edibles. So having these conversations around the M&Ms, be like, hey, right now we're doing DTT tasks and you are getting an M&M for each one. How can we fade this out so then just coming to work at a table for 5 minutes is reinforcing?
Yeah.
Because that's much more natural in the real world than getting an M&M for every time you finish one task.
And
What a bag
starting,
of M&Ms.
yeah, starting in a place though where like HRE being the focus,
Yes.
and the relationship
Uh-huh.
of the technician and the client, like being part of that like context. Mm-hmm.
You always have a potent reinforcer in that
Yeah.
case. Synthesized
Yeah.
reinforcement should be the most potent
And
reinforcer.
it's
Yeah.
teaching that skill
Yeah.
to the clinicians in a way that where they feel, okay, I am helping, and the technicians, anybody who's working with this child, I am teaching this child, I am helping this child reach their happy, relaxed, and engaged state. And this may be the only opportunity they have, depending on their background, that they have to reach this throughout the day.
Yep.
But I'm giving them that opportunity. Even on the tough days where you get no sleep, your mom may have screamed at you before you came in, teaching them to gain that skill. Are things falling apart?
It's just loud.
Teaching them to improve that skill and gain those skills is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And it's something I didn't even think I realized. This is a little deep. I don't even think I realized for myself, like how much even adults don't know their HRE at this age. Like, it's not something you talk about usually at work. Is like, what's your happy, relaxed, and engaged? It's usually like, okay, 5 o'clock. Now I'm going to my happy, relaxed, and engaged.
Right.
Like how to intertwine that throughout your day and kind of pair like, okay, hey, the client really. I have clients who enjoy wrestling, WWE, like with my clinicians, and my husband's a huge wrestling fan, so I've made myself understand wrestling.
Yeah.
Like I can, whatever John Cena's, you
Yeah.
can't see me, whatever
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. So like being able to be like, oh, hey, I know a little bit about this. I can bring this to the client and we can find this joy together
Right.
is very powerful.
It's more than Diet Coke.
It's more than Diet Coke.
Yeah.
It's, even if you don't, like let's say Bluey. I don't know if you guys
I
know Bluey.
love Bluey.
I have never watched Bluey. I don't have kids.
You should watch it. It's a great show for
I
adults.
don't like cartoons.
Oh, I don't
either.
either, but I
Hot take.
love Bluey.
Okay, but I never knew anything about it. But I had a client who enjoyed Bluey, so I did a quick Google search. I found something I enjoyed about it. I think the characters are really cute.
Yeah, they are cute.
Starting from there, teaching people how to start from even there to
Yeah.
bring people joy is powerful
Yep.
and important.
So in your role as a CLR, have there been any instances? Well, okay, let me start over. So from my perspective, this shift has been difficult. Like it is not an easy thing to bring 4,000 people and 3,000 clients into a new way of thinking, a new perspective. And there have been challenges. There's also been a lot of joy and a lot of wonder, but it's not an easy task. And you've been a part of that.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about all the wonderful, amazing parts of it, but have there been any components as a CLR that have been more challenging, or any situations you've had to deal with that were and difficult? And how did you, like, what skills do you think you have, or like, how did you solve those barriers?
So I've had a lot of pushback on just the overall foundations of it often. Like they're not bought in. They think this is just something that we're going to do and then get rid of. Like they don't have to do these things. I've gotten a lot of pushback on that. I continue to get a lot of pushback on that. I feel like I have two flip sides of the coin. I have some who are like, yes, this is amazing. The other side of the coin is, okay, we're just doing this because we have to.
The people up top told us we're going to do it. We're doing it.
Yes.
Yes.
They'll forget about it in 6 months.
Yes. Like
Yeah.
the amount of people who still even think this is disappearing in 6 months when I feel very confidently it's not. Like it's not
That's
at
good.
all.
I feel confident too.
What was the question? What was the question?
Challenge.
Challenges. So it's really been just having those hard conversations. And it's, for me personally, those hard conversations have become reinforcing where I love having them. Like, what's a good example? I don't have any specific examples offhand, but I did. I had a clinician recently who was just frustrated, came in, he was not being the kindest. And it was really, truly the skill I believe that I have. I'm praising myself now, guys. Look at you guys making me all
clap.
uncomfortable.
I'm so proud of you.
It was de-escalating. Sometimes you
Yeah.
are just de-escalating, so then you can get to the learning.
Right. 'Cause
It
you
is-
can't do the learning then.
Yes. And then setting the expectations. Like having the hard conversations and setting the expectations to be like, you may believe this way, but this is what needs to be done. This is the expectation. It is not okay to not treat people with kindness. And you need to be kind. And the expectation is to be kind and to lead with kindness. And what is your phrase? Clear as kind. Clear as kind. That's your
mine.
phrase. Brene Brown?
Nope. Kim Scott. Radical Candor.
Oh, this book's in my backpack, actually.
It's a good one.
Clear as kind. Like being clear. Being clear. Like, hey, I see you're frustrated right now. How you're treating me is not okay. We can work through this. We are going to get you there. These are the expectations. And setting those clear expectations.
Do you feel like you had those skills coming into the role, or is it something you've had to build more skills around?
So in my personal life, I've always had that skill to be clear because I've had to kind of survive. In my professional life, like I kind of said previously, I just wanted to make sure I didn't ruffle any feathers.
Yeah.
Like I did not want to ruffle any feathers because my prior history of
I don't
ruffling
understand
any
this
feathers,
at all when I look at you. And like knowing you, I just...
Oh, I get it.
Yeah,
It's
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to get fired. Truly, at the end of the day, I'm like, I need a paycheck. I got 4 feline animals to feed. Like, I have a husband. Like, I got a house. Like, I just want to make sure that I'm not ruffling any feathers. So, coming into a place where, like, I'm kind of given the power. I don't want to say the power. The opportunity to be able to say, hey, this is a positive change that needs to happen, and you are going to meet this expectation.
And ruffle some feathers.
And ruffle some feathers.
And know it's going to be okay.
Yeah, is a good thing.
We're in an industry that needs to get ruffled.
100%.
Yes.
Why do you think it's okay now? Like, what has changed that makes it okay for you to ruffle feathers versus before?
I've never been one that's like a huge company person, but this statement is going to sound like that. I need to make that clear. Centria kind of has done that. Like coming here and having this values-based approach where you are client-centered, going full circle on the client, that is giving that power.
You've got
To
backup.
everybody. Yeah. I know if I say, hey, you do not need to have your hands on that client right now. You don't. I'm going to have the backup to people to say, you know what, you're right. You do not need to hold that oatmeal cream pie while they're having a tantrum when they're throwing it away from you. You don't need to do that. Having that power and that backup from everybody else to say, you know what, that's right. Or having those conversations is what helps that.
Yeah.
I think it helps that, like, at least my experience has been that for being provided opportunities that are outside my comfort zone. But, yeah. Yeah. Did we go through them all?
No, we have a couple more.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're just stealing the stage. It's great.
This is my worst nightmare. I'm still going to say it. I know we have been doing this for a while.
You're
Still.
doing awesome.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's talk about this transition from going from I just don't want to get fired
Yeah.
to where you are now
Yeah.
On a podcast.
and what
Yeah.
you want to do future. Like, how has this like transition like just changed like your approach to the job and what you want from it?
I want to be somebody who leads clinicians to. I don't think I've ever said this out loud before. Well, I want to be someone who leads clinicians to client-centered care. And even BCBAs I've been talking about outside of Centria, I am making sure to have this conversation with them. And then the things that, like, I know they've been doing. Like, I've been there.
Yep.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Having those conversations with them to say, hey, you can do better. And not being afraid to say, hey, you can do better and you need to do better. And you need to learn how to do better.
And
It's
we
not
know
okay.
how to. It's not an
Yes.
unknown anymore. Like, I think there's this trend right now in the field where you can just say this buzzword compassion and it means you're doing something right. And that's fine. But I think what's missing, I think, in the general discussion is the actual task analysis or like the actual skills. And like, we know what those are now. And we've shown it with our data here. And I think that's what's really cool about what you're saying. Because like, even people who aren't at Centria, you can give them those skills. You can talk to them about those skills. You can share your experiences that have actually led to those outcomes using compassionate practices rather than it just being a buzzword.
Yeah. I think one of the things that was really powerful for me was when I was at ABAI and people would come to the table and we these little stickers that are like the HRE stickers. There was probably, I would say, out of 50 people that came to our table one day, 10 of them did not even know what HRE was. Like, had no idea. They had shared with me they'd been in the field for like 10 plus years, working with clients, had no idea what it was.
So there's like buzzword HRE, compassion, right? Compassionate care. The definition of compassion that I really like, it's like empathy with action that leads to outcomes, right? And it's one thing to say you believe it. It's one thing to like, we've talked about this yesterday, talking about like, it's one thing for people to get credibility for talking about compassionate care, and we're about this. It's another thing for us to say, we have over 400 PFAs that we've done, and a compassionate approach to understanding like a child with complex, challenges.
Can you guys talk about how the 400 plus that you've done, like say more about it? Because like, it's so powerful.
It's so cool.
The 10 I did in the one day, my brain was ready to explode.
Well,
like by
10
the
of those
end.
of the 400 are yours. How many? Well, no, more than that. Probably like 15. It's your data.
Like 10 to 15, yeah.
Some
But
of
like
that's your data.
400 across the company when
pretty
there's some
crazy.
companies that have done none.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's really remarkable about the over 400 is that it was implemented by over 300 people. It was coached by over 30 people. So initially it was just me coaching PFAs with a couple implementers. Then it was my 4 directors. Then it was 6 directors. And then it was 16 or 18, however many CLRs. And then also we have some RCDs who are coaching PFAs. And so that data, the generalization of that data, I think is what I'm the most proud of, is I can't say 400 of those PFAs are mine. I think only like 6 of them are. They're not that many that I've coached personally that are on that sheet. But the fidelity across however many implementers and however many coaches we have is so high. And we have fidelity data to back it up because we did fidelity with everyone. It's really, I think that's what's remarkable is that not only did we do over 400 PFAs, we have an average of 20 minutes per PFA, which I'm
Not 2 months.
Not 2
Right?
months, not 3
No,
months.
3 months.
3 months,
And
yeah.
even then, like the data was not
It's not
solid
good.
data.
Yep.
Yeah, so 20 minutes with a 96% control effective rate. So like we were able to reach control for 96 of those, which I think is 310 PFAs, which is 410 PFAs, which is mind blowing. And then we have on top of that, those 8 or 9 that we didn't reach control in, only one of them was because it was dangerous behavior. The rest of them was because the client cooperated unexpectedly. Yeah. And that's the best outcome we could ask for in a PFA.
And a majority of those, almost all of those, were safe. Like
They were
the
safe.
client
They were
was
all
safe
safe.
the entire time.
99.67%.
Yeah. All but one.
Safe.
And so
when
like the
go ahead.
point is like that's compassion.
That is
Yes.
compassion.
Right.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
not like I have a platform that I'm gonna use and talk about it, or I publish an article about it. Like we have data. Like we're showing impact.
Yep.
Like, and I appreciate you saying that, Hillary. I haven't thought about that. Like That should be a very, I'm sure it is, but I'm going to say it's a very proud moment for you. Like this,
Very.
That's a very successful outcome for an initiative to where the majority of them are not done by you.
It means that 30 other people at this organization right now could teach 30 other people, and I don't have to be a part of that anymore.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Is that like, I mean, I don't know what I would like to say I'm going to be at Centria as long as Centria exists, but who knows, right? But regardless if I'm here or not, this work has to live on, and that's how you make it live on. That capacity can't sit with me.
Yeah.
I can't be the only one who knows how to do these things. My team can't be the only one who knows how to do these things. And so it's really spreading that knowledge and ensuring that it lives on, and it's like almost like a legacy to a certain extent.
It is a legacy. Period. I'm gonna
Thanks.
give yourself credit.
Okay, it's a legacy. What I think is more compassionate than all of those PFAs is what comes after them.
For sure.
Right? Like, it is one thing for us to engage in an analysis, which I am very involved in the community of PFA and SBT, and I hear of people who do PFAs and do SBT, and they may or may not be effective at their treatment, right? Or they might not even start treatment. Like, I see people who do PFAs and then they just go back to the processes they had before. They don't utilize the component package. To me, the more compassionate, like, it is absolutely, yes, let's do an analysis that's safe, that's dignified, and that's effective and doesn't waste anyone's time and is resource efficient. But let's also use that and like make sure we're making an impact from there.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is even more compassionate.
Yes.
Because we have to bridge that gap for clients who aren't able to get to those outcomes on their own or because of the environments they're in. Like, now we actually get to impact those things and get them to the goals and the dreams and the aspirations that they have. And continued in a way that's compassionate and kind and safe and dignified. And that's, I think, the most exciting part. PFAs are wonderful and amazing, but they're only 20 minutes. They're only 20 minutes of the story, right? They're 20 minutes of the story, and they're a very important 20 minutes.
And it's so individualized to each client.
Yes.
The whole process, that's another piece of compassion, is it's individualized. What looks like a PFA and SBT for one client,
Very
one
different for
person is
another.
going to be very different than another. Yep. And compassion is, a part of compassion is looking at things individually.
Yeah.
On a global scale. Everybody comes to the table with different baggage.
Context matters.
Yes. Very much so.
Otherwise, we could just have a PFA room
Right?
with all
Right.
the same materials.
Yeah.
A day in and day out.
The
Jobs
same-
would be a lot
Nobody would
easier.
have to do an intake. They could just bring the clients in. Oh, wait, people do this. They're called FAs.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I was going to say, the 3 months I spent, that's what it was. It was very much,
Yeah, it's a clinical room. There's no individualization.
yep, nope.
Yeah. Yeah, it's responsive. And I think
Unsafe.
that and I think the other part of this that I don't think is I don't think this is talked about enough in the space of compassionate care. And I think it's a difficult transition for people is we are talking about client-centered care and the compassion towards our clients, but doing work like this is also compassionate towards our implementers, our technicians, our BCBAs, our families, and the people who are surrounding that client, right? Because we're also prioritizing their safety and their dignity. What I think is difficult about that is the paradigm shift people have to go through to to see that as part of the process for themselves, because they're so stuck in what they thought they were supposed to do.
I was just having a conversation actually earlier about this, about like just parents in this approach. Because a lot of parents come to the table, just like I said, with a lot of trauma, a lot of like background in their go-to is to take away and punish.
Control.
And
Yeah.
absolute control. Because that's what they were modeled when they were growing up too. And a lot of I don't like calling it parent engagement is focused on, hey, you don't have to do this. You can, one of the things I've been talking to my parents about often lately is, hey, it's okay on a hard day to just lower that demand.
Yeah.
Like, chores are an example of this. If you're giving chores and you that day, you all are just not feeling it and you're having a rough day, it is okay to say, we're not doing this today. We're just going to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is okay for them to lower that demand and make their lives easier.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes everybody needs that permission to
need the
make their
permission.
lives a little easier.
It's even okay to lower it after you've already given it,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yeah,
And to keep it that way for a while.
exactly. Like, it's
how's
okay
it?
to
So
make
how's
things
this
easier.
impacted like parents and like in your parent engagement?
So I have one parent that I've worked with for a long time now. It was my first case when I started, and It took us a long time to kind of build that rapport and get there, but her go-to used to be to scream, yell, take things away. We've all probably seen it before.
Have we talked about this?
Yes, we have.
Yes. Okay. That's what I thought.
Now she is responding with neutrality. And she is choosing most times to not take the electronics away and instead will just step away herself. And giving her the power to do that is very impactful.
Yeah.
I also have another parent who stated that she didn't realize she didn't have to punish her kid. Like she did not, she's a younger mom, single mom. She didn't realize that she didn't have to punish her kid each time. That she
It's a cultural norm.
didn't, very much so.
Yeah.
And changing those cultural norms is extremely powerful
Yeah.
and
difficult.
impactful.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
This was so nice.
I
Quite enjoyed this.
I told you.
You were all nervous.
I was.
It's just like every time we talk and every
Yeah.
time I get the chance to connect with you, I'm just continually reminded of our first time and how like more sure I am that like you're a leader that we need to give more
I'm gonna
voice
need
to.
you to like. I'm gonna need that piece recorded specifically for
And sent to
me
you.
and sent to me to like read on my hard days.
Yeah.
Like that's. I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know if you can say anything about this.
Go ahead.
What's next?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So many
What are you guys
things.
most excited about that's happening next?
I am the most excited about right now, currently. I don't think Timothy's going to believe me when I say this because I've been complaining about it a lot. I'm most excited about BT training being launched so that our behavior technicians are also getting the foundations of care from start. I think that the complete package, like I've been doing interviews for BT trainers the last week, and it's just really clear to me the gaps that we have. And gaps are okay as long as we learn from them. And so I try not to beat myself up too much about it. But knowing that BT training is coming and we're going to be doing in-person training for all of our new technicians that align to the foundation, that's aligned to the foundations of care, to me is a more complete package for this. That's going to be so impactful to our clients and also to the expectations we're setting on our supervising
Yes.
clinicians.
Because they're going to come in with that base knowledge too and be able to question. There's nothing that makes me happier than when my technicians question me on something I'm saying. And having that background knowledge will allow them to do that questioning from the start.
It deepens their understanding and it deepens your understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best.
I'm
I'm really excited about that. And that's coming really fast, like before the end of the year.
Yeah.
I'm both excited and terrified of this organizational reorg that we're going through right now. For those that are listening that aren't aware, we are shifting from like an operations ran like field services
Like
to
you typically see.
like you see across the industry to where now all of our supervising clinicians that are BCBAs are going to be reporting into clinical directors whose sole responsibility is overseeing clinical quality and outcomes and the support and development and mentorship of clinicians. And those clinical directors are reporting into another BCBA that's an area clinical director who's solely responsible for developing clinical directors.
Yeah.
Who's reporting into a clinical VP that's a BCBA who's solely responsible for developing area clinical directors, and they're also reporting into me. And to know that we're going to have we've done a lot of work, and like just the conversation today around the foundations of care has been like an incredible like initiative that we've done that's been really successful. But we've done it from the outside of the field operations, right? And we've been like on the sidelines, like trying to impact, and that's not a sustainable way to deliver like transformative care for a long period of time. And so it's going to be a difficult journey through this transition, but I'm really excited about that.
Good.
That would be my number 2
Yeah.
after BT training. Yeah, that's going to be great. Having gone through this shift, like rolling out foundations of care and going through this shift as I don't, the outsider is not the right term, but like on the sidelines, I think is the right, like as the, the flag ref on the soccer field, not the actual ref who makes the calls and decides who gets the red cards or the green cards.
Love the red cards and yellow cards. If we could bring them into every thing that's done in human world. For those of you that don't watch football, aka soccer, red cards are when you're out of the game completely. Yellow cards are like your warning. And I just want it to be used throughout everything.
I love it.
Like in a meeting?
Red card.
Oh, my husband and I do that. I need to make that clear. Like when we're in the middle of something, I'll be like, red card. We're done.
But the flag refs have no power over those calls, right?
Yeah.
And they get to decide who was out, who gets the ball on the sidelines, which is impactful. It's really impactful, but it doesn't necessarily determine the outcome of the game. Like they don't get to determine there's a penalty shot, right?
Yep.
And so I think that this transition that we're going to be going through, and we're already going through, I am as excited about, because we will be able to have that more direct impact and be so much more enmeshed in the wonderful parts of the field, but also the problems that we can help solve, right? And so like right now we're trying to solve them, and we just don't have enough levers in all the right places to solve them. So I'm really excited to have the levers.
So let's end this conversation with what are you most excited about next?
I don't know. There's a lot that's just happening. Period. Like there's just a lot happening, and I'm very excited for everything that's happening that's unknown right now. So that's it's a very
great.
broad thing, but it is. There's a lot of unknown factors.
I appreciate that. 'Cause
I do too.
A lot of people that come to me are like
Very uncomfortable.
uncomfortable with the unknown.
I am
They
very,
would not say excited.
No, that's so. There's a lot of unknown factors that are happening and changing.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
We're so glad you're with us on this journey.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me be your first one. I guess at first I was nervous, but
You
this
did
is
awesome.
really fun.
You rocked
You
it.
did great.
Yeah.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks.
And that concludes another episode of the HRE podcast.
Thanks for listening. If the HRE podcast is a part of your synthesized reinforcers, let us know what else would make the perfect reinforcement context for you in the comments below, and join us next time.